Thanks for coming today. I'm excited to see everyone. Today I'm going to be doing we're putting together something of a UU service, Unitarian Universalist, which means there's a lot of room for interpretation of the pastor, which is great. I know I promised a Star Wars sermon or a Star Wars themed liturgy, and we have something of that. I had a lot of language where I used the word force. And I've replaced every time where I had that word with the word spirit. Force, I don't believe really in the force. That's not my, some people do, and that's fantastic, but that's not my thing. So I thought spirit was a word that captured more, was a more inviting and welcoming word. So if force works well for you, then think force when you say spirit. If you want to think Trinitarian, Presbyterian spirit, then that's fantastic too. For me, spirit is just something of an animating, feminine, life-giving power in the universe that just fuels just this wonderful miracle that is our lives. Thanks.
We light this chalice, mindful of the living spirit that surrounds and moves into our lives. May we remain present and purposeful as we worship together today. And may I invite you to greet one another, greet the divine spirit or force in your neighbor.
The Spirit flowing through me calls me to recognize the Spirit flowing through others. And sensing the Spirit flow through others calls me to heed the Spirit flowing through me. The Spirit calls me to fight for justice, strive for equity, and cultivate compassion. I cannot fully commit to the Spirit in solitude, so I commit to crafting and accepting and encouraging community to open ourselves fully together to the Spirit. As the Spirit comes to each person individually, I will dictate to no one how they should live with the Spirit, but encourage all within my influence in a free and responsible quest for truth. The Spirit knows no master but the whole of life. Thus, I will preserve the rights of conscience of others and myself, working to support the communal will as my conscience dictates. I will never lose sight of the ultimate will of the Spirit, peace, liberty, and justice for all living things. And I reside humbly within the Spirit, connected webs of existence that binds all of existence together eternally.
Breathing in, I am aware of my pain.
Breathing out, I am aware that I am not my pain.
Breathing in, I am aware of my past.
Breathing out, I am aware that I'm not my past.
Breathing in, I am aware of love.
Breathing out, I am aware that I am worthy of love.
Breathing in, I am aware of my anger.
Breathing out, I am aware that I'm not my anger.
Breathing in, I am aware of my despair.
Breathing out, I am aware that I'm not my despair.
Breathing in, I am aware of joy.
Breathing out, I am aware that I'm an agent of joy.
Breathing in, I am aware of hope.
Breathing out, I am aware that I'm an agent of hope.
Breathing in, I am aware of peace.
Breathing out, I am aware that I'm worthy of peace.
Breathing in, I am aware.
2 Corinthians 6, 14 and 15. Do not be mismatched with unbelievers, for what partnership is there between righteousness and lawlessness? Or what fellowship is there between light and darkness? What agreement does Christ have with Beliar? Or what does a believer share with an unbeliever? Just over 3 years ago, I was on this campus for the very first and what I felt was likely to be the last time. Trying to get my head around the possibility of going to seminary. Any seminary, really, but especially a Christian seminary. I ended up, after the general concerns of family relocation and changing homes, with two big questions. The first was whether, after leaving my Mormon Christian faith of 27 years, which had grown unsustainably toxic to me, could I, only 2 years later, return to an explicitly Christian space and not only survive, but spiritually and psychologically, but truly thrive? The answer to that, I say without undue humility, has been yes. Academically challenged, spiritually stretched, and morally nurtured, I am as mentally and spiritually healthy as I probably have been in my entire life. And all that without breaking the bank. My second question does not have, unfortunately, as clear or positive an answer. The second question was, would I, as a confessing atheist, be a blessing or a burden to my fellow classmates and professors? I didn't come here to make friends, is a common refrain that I've heard among burnt-out seminarians. I absolutely came here to make friends. Ministry is lonely. Every book on the life of ministry that I have read alone in my bedroom on a Friday night says so. We got to make our friends while we can. On the one hand, I have found friendships here that are truly beyond what I could have hoped. I came into seminary in a very vulnerable place. And I was lucky that this vulnerability was met with the vulnerability of others. And friendships were forged that I truly believe will last a lifetime. On the other hand, well, let's just say this. Mainstream Christianity is at a crossroads. I've heard that 100 times while I've been at seminary. What I haven't heard, but as a close and concerned outsider, very much wish I had, is that the decisions that mainline Christianity makes about how to treat non-believers will not just be a key indicator of the direction of that mainline Christianity chooses, but one of the core dilemmas that it must solve to determine its future identity. And like seemingly every other crossroads that mainline Christianity has come to in the last few years, it is easy to imagine Paul standing right in the middle of the road, hands on hips, a slightly exasperated look on his face. Haven't we been over this already? Just like in the ordination of women and the recognition of the full humanity of queer folks, Paul needn't shoulder all the blame for the church dragging their collective moral feet. But he sure as hell isn't making things any easier. In his exegesis of this text, Michael Henry's foundational Bible commentary takes Paul to, I think, a fairly logical conclusion. And I know this commentary is old, but one, it's just too juicy, and two, it remains influential. Here's Michael Henry, or the people writing in Michael Henry's name. It is wrong for believers to join with the wicked and the profane. The word unbeliever applies to all destitute of true faith. True pastors will caution their beloved children in the gospel not to be unequally yoked. This version of Paul's instruction, thankfully, this verse of Paul's, thankfully, never makes an appearance in the modern Sunday Revised Common Lectionary as far as I could find. I'm not super skilled at that, but it is mainly trotted out in my experience when the issues of interreligious marriage is discussed. And here's Michael Henry again. The fatal effects of neglecting scriptural precepts as to marriage clearly appear. Instead of a helpmeet, the union brings a snare. When believers enter into such unions against the express warnings of God's word, they must expect much distress. That's fine, that's one application, but certainly not the whole. Paul's belief in the people of Christ as temple of God, the section of Scripture from which the selection arises, is clearly meant to be applicable to all aspects of Christian life. As it would seem, is the subcommand of not being yoked together with unbelievers. Luckily for us, Michael Henry does not stop there. This caution also extends to common conversation. We should not join in friendship and acquaintance with wicked men and unbelievers. Though we cannot wholly avoid seeing and hearing and being with such, yet we should never choose them for friends. We must not defile ourselves by converse with those who defile themselves with sin. Come out from the works of iniquity and separate from their vain and sinful pleasures and pursuits. From all conformity to the corruptions of this present evil world, if it be an envied privilege to be the son or daughter of an earthly prince, who can express the dignity and happiness of being sons and daughters of the Almighty? I mean, fair. I do love my vain and sinful pleasures. I also love how this commentary has no distinction between unbelievers and the wicked. There's no good unbeliever camp and a bad unbeliever camp. It's just everyone there together having a good time. It's very convenient. To be fair, Revelation 21:8 has the unbelievers sandwiched right between the cowardly and the abominable. So Paul isn't alone. I don't know about you, but an unbeliever sandwich on a bed of abomination topped with cowardice does not sound half bad. All right, if there's one thing I have learned in seminary, it is to give Paul a chance, without giving Paul too much of a chance, if you know what I mean. And also to never read Revelation. So in the interest of giving Paul a chance, let's just jump right into my totally qualified and professional Greek exegesis of this text. I didn't take Greek. For me, the key word here is the yoked bit, which the NRSV translates as mismatched, but almost every other text translates as yoked. The Greek word here is heterozygontes, which I have totally pronounced correctly, and which is variously translated in modern English Bibles as be yoked, be unequally yoked, team up, be bound together, become partners, and the softest, mushiest of all, the NRSV, be mismatched. In fact, as you've probably noticed, we use the term with the same root for genetics, which I am also qualified to talk about because I took AP biology in high school. Heterozygous, I am pretty sure, is when a dominant allele of a gene is matched up in the same organism with a recessive allele of a gene. So if a P gene has a recessive wrinkly skin allele paired with a dominant smooth skin allele, the P is going to come out smooth. Two recessive gene alleles are needed to get the P nice and wrinkly. And I find this comparison to be particularly compelling, and so I'm going to go with it for a good little bit here. When Paul was writing this text, Christianity was absolutely the recessive allele under the dominant Roman Empire. And now, fully backed by the American Western Empire, it is just as absolutely the dominant allele. Dominant isn't necessarily bad, and recessive isn't necessarily good. There are two ways of being in the world. And what really matters, especially for those in a place of dominance, is what are we going to do about our position? One of the primary threats to the soul of American Christianity, especially white, straight, male American Christianity, is that it is still largely operating with a recessive paradigm from a dominant position. using recessive texts to immorally claim the victim position, pretending that secularism, atheism, feminism, Islam, invisible and invasive, are oppressing them the same way the Roman Empire oppressed early Christians. Even though Christians, clearly the popular majority, also control every level and are overrepresented at every level of local, state, and national government, giving them cover not just to persecute non-Christians, but black and brown Christians, queer and trans Christians, and whenever they can get away with it, female Christians and lower class Christians as well. I get it, I do. Convincing people of extreme privilege like me that they're actually the ever-threatened victim is a great way to fill pews with CEOs and coffers with that trust fund kind of money. I know because I felt numerous institutions try to convince this straight, white, not so rich man that the world and the gay agenda and those women in the pussy hats and those Black Lives Matter people are out to get me. It's an easy way out. Avoid the messy problems of finding a moral way to use your privilege to make the world a better place by convincing yourself that you're really the oppressed one. Now, I want to be particularly clear about something. My relative outsider status as an atheist here at Seminary has, in some meaningful, emotionally and spiritually impactful ways, marginalized me. However, my every other kind of possible privilege, my gender, my age, my orientation, my race, my physical and mental normativity, has done much more to center me unfairly in classroom and conversation than any outsider faith status would ever offset. I am aware that I'm walking a very tightrope of hypocritically claiming the victim card in this sermon. But I have hope that my consistent engagement in worship and campus life, my efforts to grow and change as I have learned about my place in oppressive structures, has, in some way, earned me the chance to speak a good and critical word about the way the church and its institutions treat non-believers, even from my place of privilege, both to be honest about my experience and hopefully to make this seminary just a little bit safer and more welcoming for any non-believers with less privilege than me who might come along looking for a place to strive together with fellow seekers in these hallowed halls and hallways. As I have prepared this sermon, I have been consistently confronted with ways that I need to change to live up to the standards I would ask of Christians, and how often I fall short of even that. However, notwithstanding my doubts, my heart compels me to offer today this conviction. Preaching as recessive Paul from dominant pulpits will never suffice, and will doom mainline Christianity to complete irrelevancy. Am I asking Christians to abandon Paul completely? Tempting, but no. What I am asking you to envision is actually pretty simple. All those interested in helping, all those who are interested in helping Christianity move into a healthier relationship with non-believers need to work with Paul to find an ethics of cultural Christian dominance. What does that sound like? What does that feel like? Well, to me, an ethical, culturally dominant Paul sounds an awful lot like our New Testament professors, Louis Donaldson and Margaret Amer. Where recessive Paul says, I know for sure, dominant Paul says, well, maybe. No one really knows. Can we just all be good to each other? Can we just do that for a bit? I didn't really need the glasses and the lanyard. And where recessive Paul says Christianity will not be oppressed, dominant Paul says, I'm not going to tell you what your Christianity should be, but I'm going to tell you this. Your Christianity sure as hell better not be oppressive. My Margaret Amer impression is not great, so I added a swear word to make up for it. We have examples then. We just need to be clear in our commitment and dogged in our efforts. What does righteousness have to do with wickedness? Asks a recessive Paul in 2 Corinthians. Ethically dominant Paul would need to admit something like, even at my best, my life and the life of everyone I love, really, is made up of often equal parts righteousness and wickedness. And I still need to learn to love myself and others. Recessive Paul asks, what does light have to do with darkness? Dominant Paul inquires, what is darkness without light? In the shadow of the cross, and in the shadow of a too often broken human family, we all dwell at the holy nexus of light and dark, joy and sorrow. When recessive Paul asks, what harmony is there between Christ and Beliar? Dominant Paul tells us about the time that she has worshipped in the houses of Islam and Buddhism and Unitarian Universalism and left renewed and rejoicing. Where recessive Paul asks, what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? A dominant Paul asks an unbeliever out to coffee and asks, what is your story? And listens deeply to find their common humanity. My word to mainline Christianity, thanks for coming, is my same word to atheists and unbelievers of all types. Because atheists and unbelievers are at that very same crossroads, where we all need to decide from our place of relative privilege if we're going to build bigger fences between or bigger tables around our philosophical and metaphysical differences. I don't really know what metaphysical means, but it sounds good. It's very simple. It's very simple. We don't have time for walls. If we are feeling mismatched with the other, and we recognize that we're in the dominant position, it is time to take a hard look about what we have done to keep or slow the other down, and what we need to do to be equally yoked again. We have, as an entire human family, and especially as a Western world, gotten ourselves into a mess that only we can get ourselves out of together. And we have to do it soon. It is time for us to cash in all of our "we are right" chips that the Western religious and intellectual marketplace values so highly. A marketplace where we are all doomed to failure. And trade them in for as many "we are kind, we are just, and we are listening" chips as we can get, while we still have anything left to spend. We might feel sometimes that we're getting a raw deal, but that is only because the marketplace of values is vastly undervaluing goodness and horrendously overvaluing rightness. I cannot promise you world peace or an end to hunger. I cannot even promise you full pews or abundant potlucks. But I can promise you hope. The hope of whippings beat into plowshares, and the hope of the lion lying down with the lamb. And if nothing else, rebellions are built on hope. Thank you. Super smart for this after the sermon. emotion, yet peace, ignorance, yet knowledge, passion, yet serenity, chaos, yet harmony, death, yet life. Thank you.